Toastmasters, friends, our gracious host. I didn't understand. I had been at my job for years. I had mastered all the skills they wanted me to master. I did everything they wanted me to do. I followed the rules by the book. So why wasn't I getting anywhere? I finally got fed up. Don't get me wrong, my boss liked me. Every year I got those met expectations reviews. I didn't feel like I was going to get fired, but I wanted more. I wanted to change things for the better. Enough of the status quo. I want to put on a show. Finally, in the one-on-one with my boss, I had enough. I was going to say something. Sat down at the table and boom, I laid out everything I wanted to do. This, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. Bam! And as it was coming out of my mouth, very rarely do the words come out of your mouth the same way they are in your head. But today was that day. I was moving mountains. I was moving apparently only myself, because my boss's facial expression didn't change one bit. She just sat there and looked at me like she was patiently waiting for me to finish. And when I was finished, she said, yeah, we want you to do all that stuff too. But you realize this is the first time you've ever told us that. And you know what? She was right. From my application to my resume to the interview to all those years on the job, I had only been doing what I thought they wanted me to do. I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't being me. And from that moment on, I learned if I wanted to be successful at anything, not just work, at school, in life, I need to bring my whole self. I need to be authentic and do things in my way. And that's exactly what I started to do. I started bringing my personality, injecting it into meetings, my strong side, my argumentative side into meetings. I even found this awesome club, an organization called Toastmasters, where I could talk about almost anything I wanted. And I started using that to build my content, build my philosophies. So today, I want to talk to all of you on how you can be authentic. First, let's address why it's so hard to be authentic. It's so hard to be our authentic selves because think about it. For the first at least 2 decades of our life, we're focused on fitting in. When you're small, it's almost painful to not fit in. You don't want to be the one left out. You don't want to be the one casted aside. You want to feel like you belong. You want people to like you. So you start doing things to fit in, to blend in. And again, we do that over the course of 10, 15, 20 years. Maybe we're still doing it now. And that's a long time to build habits. So now we have to break these habits. No more status quo. It is time for us to stop trying to fit in and start standing out. And we do that in 2 ways. One, by bringing 100% of ourselves to everything we do. And 2, helping others. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you more stories, because I do love stories, and that is my authentic self. But I'm going to include a lesson with each one. These lessons and these stories will be around how to bring 100% of yourself to everything you do. Then after that, I'm going to give you a stack of tips on what you can do to free yourself up to help other people. Story number 1. The lesson is, following the crowd can rob you of meaningful experiences. That same company I worked with, years later, I had been there 20 years. And I showed up in the morning and very quickly in my email popped up, boop, 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 boop. Last short notice meeting, organizational update, everybody meet in this kind of room. Now, anyone who's ever worked in corporate America, we get these kind of things all the time. And normally they're pretty harmless. Yeah, there's a reorg going on, but how many reorgs have we been through? But for some odd reason, this one felt different. Wasn't 300 of us getting drugged to a conference room. Nope, this was 10 of us being drugged to someone's office. Got into that office and I found out that day, after being with the company for 20 years, my entire team was being laid off. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really surprised about this. Honestly, I wasn't even that bummed about it. I didn't like that job. And the only thing that kept me there was I was too scared to get up and leave. The world's pretty scary when you spend 20 years in one place. But none of that surprised me. What surprised me was there was my boss and the HR person in the room. And both of them told us, you have 30 days left at the company. We strongly recommend that you go home and you don't have to come back to work again. We'll handle everything over email. That was a little surprising. What was really surprising was how many people actually did that. I couldn't believe it. This is a company where people had been there 5, 10, 15, my case, 20 years, and they just disappeared. And that is when I knew, regardless of what they were suggesting, I had to make my own decision. And I was going to stay there every single one of those 30 days. Here is why. While I respect private people's lives and that they want to keep everything private and disappear, that's great. But when you've been somewhere 20 years and there are over 7,000 people at that campus, you know a ton of people. And it just will not do my heart right to disappear without saying goodbye. So I stayed at work. I did my job hunting at work. And I made sure to roam the hallways. And I took that 30 days to spend it exactly how I wanted to do it, which was either walking up to people I know and telling them the situation, or they would come up to me and we would shake hands. I got to say goodbye to so many people. It's an interesting experience if you've ever been laid off. A lot of people look at you like you're dying. So I get it. A lot of people don't want to go through that. Matter of fact, I was reminded of that when I set up a party. It wasn't just me and my team. There were maybe 1,200 people laid off in that wave. I set up a happy hour for a lot of them. It's partly for me, but it's for everybody. And out of everybody that I was invited, out of everybody who was affected, I was the only laid off person who showed up. Good news is 50 other people showed up to wish me off good luck. But to wrap up this story, my heart just would not let me disappear. Even though I was asked to disappear, even though we were encouraged to disappear, I just couldn't do it. And because I couldn't do it, because I chose to be me, my authentic self, and handle this situation how I wanted to handle it, it meant the world to me. I walked away with zero regrets. I walked away loving the fact of what I had did and being able to connect an emotional level with so many people around me. Had I followed the crowd, I would have been robbed of those meaningful experiences. Story number 2, don't hesitate to make a situation better. 2 jobs down the line, I worked at a company for a couple of years and I loved that job. It was a great job. But I slowly started to notice the culture changing. Conversations that used to be in the group, out in the open, let's resolve conflict, were starting to go to side rooms. And there a lot of mystery revolved around them. Around that same time, a gentleman named Harvey joined our group as a contractor. He was a talented guy, an older gentleman, but this was a trial by fire web development group. So I wondered, as good as he was, as talented as he was, would he make the cut? I worked for 1 month with him and I was starting to feel comfortable. Yes, he's not as fast as the other people are, but I think this guy's going to make the cut. One idle Tuesday, over lunch break, I was working at my computer, and he was 4 seats down from me, working at his computer, when someone from a different group walked up, tapped him on his back, and said, "It's your time to leave." I heard this and I thought, okay, he must have known this was coming. But by his reaction, no, he did not. Harvey asked, "Can I finish this email? Just get this email sent out?" And the guy said, "No, it's your time. You have to go." Harvey was let go with 0 notice. I was enraged, but had to hold myself back. There's things going on here that I don't know about. I don't want to rush to judgment. But there's one thing that I knew. I can't let this situation go without me doing anything. So while I couldn't question what they were doing because I didn't know the reasons why they were doing it, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to let Harvey walk out of here, be escorted out of here by himself. The sad thing was none of our team was there besides me and Harvey. Out of 12 people, I was the only one who even had the chance to say goodbye to him. So I got up, I told the sir who was escorting him, I'm coming with, and we both walked him out. And I'm proud of that because me and him were able to have a lighthearted conversation, a good conversation. I'm sure this was a very negative thing happening to him in his life, but at the very least, I was able to add a little bit of positivity as we walked out of the building. And we got to the door, we turned around, and we shook hands, and he paid me the greatest of compliments, and I paid him the greatest of compliments. And off he went. So I was able to take a moment where I could have just sat and ignored what was going on and turn it into something that was meaningful for both of us. But the story doesn't end there. I wasn't going to let it go in terms of wanting to know why he was let go in such a manner. I talked to the leadership. I talked to my boss, my boss's boss, my boss's boss's boss. I talked to the person who led that person out. And my questions were the same. What did he do? There could be reasons to escort someone out. He could have went on a racist rant on social media. He could have been stealing from the company. I have to leave my mind open. There are things that he could have done, which mean, yes, you out now. But their reply to me was that his performance wasn't stacking up to what we hoped it would be. I specifically asked, was he stealing from the company? Did he punch someone in the mouth? And again, the only reasons they could give me was that his performance wasn't what they hoped it would be. Now, friends, I am a realist, and when you have someone like that, yes, you have to transfer them somewhere else. You have to find a better place for them. Agreed. But I found it sickening that a person would be tapped on the back with 0 notice that they had to leave. So rather than keeping it to myself, I decided I would never forgive myself if I didn't say something. So I told all the same people who I asked why I left, I told them all it was a disgusting thing to do. I told them all it was a disgusting way to treat people. And I spoke my mind, right or wrong. It didn't work out well for me. They made me quite uncomfortable over the next few weeks until even I myself had decided it was time to go. But let's be clear on 2 things. The moment I decided to apply and get a new job was the moment they walked Harvey off the lot. And the second thing is, while one would think getting a lot of blowback and retaliation and harassment for speaking your mind would make someone regret something, I had zero regrets because I did what I thought was right. Here's a funny thing about regrets. People tend to think they come from taking a gamble and losing. But most often, regret doesn't come from losing. Regret comes from when you have an opportunity in front of you and you do nothing. Don't hesitate to make a situation better. Don't say, it is what it is. It is what you make it. Story number 3. The lesson here is don't just show people the strong side of you. My mother came down with a case of dementia. And I don't want to treat my mother's dementia as different from anyone else's dementia. It's a struggle no matter who has it, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But I do have to point out that my mother walked into dementia. I'm losing my words here. She brought the dementia on herself, debatably, because she had struggled with alcohol for years. Her whole life that I knew her, she struggled with alcohol. But at some point, she lost control. And it was extremely sad to watch someone drink and not eat for months. The human body is incredibly resilient, but not that resilient. The doctors said she basically pickled her brain. So I would go to see her. And every time I went to see her, it was much the same. On my way there, I dreaded going because I knew how sad it was going to be. But I have to be strong. I have to be strong. My mother's life and situation is bad enough without me breaking down on her. So I would dread driving there every time. And then I would cry after I left every time. Until one day, I went to see her, and it was a visit much like any other. I sat down by her bed. I showed her pictures of the family on the phone, and I got up to leave. And as I looked back, she asked me not to go. And there was a look on her face that just broke me. I don't even remember walking across the room to her. I floated and I draped my arms around her and I cried. I'm not talking about that pretty cry where you sniffle a little bit and little tears run down your face. I ugly cried. I sobbed. I cried so much my collar was drenched. And my mother, who had been the rock for most of my life, was once again my rock because she turned her head, kissed me on the cheek, and she told me she loved me. And depending how you look at the story, you could look at that story and say, you broke. But I did the right thing. Again, I had zero regrets because that is the type of visit I wished every visit would have been. We shared something I will remember. If I may be completely honest, those be strong, hold a stiff upper lip visits, now that I'm years past that, those blend together. That one visit where I broke down, I will never forget. And I have zero regrets that it happened. Sometimes it takes more strength to be weak and vulnerable than it does to be strong and unmoving. I will say that again because I think it's that important. Sometimes it takes more strength to be weak and vulnerable than it does to be strong and unmoving. Don't just show people the strong you. Show people the weak you. Those are my 3 stories. on how to bring 100% of yourself to a situation. The 3 lessons are: following the crowd can rob you of experiences that are meaningful to you. Lesson number 2, don't hesitate to make a situation better. It's your situation. Make the most of it. And lesson number 3, don't just show people the strong you. Show them the weak you, because you want to show them 100% of you. Bring 100% of yourself to every situation. The second way to be authentic is to help people. As much as I would love to share 3 more stories, I'm going to save those for another day. So instead, I'm going to give you some rapid fire tips to wrap this up with. Why does helping other people help you be yourself? Because how do you expect to change the world if you're not helping change people? Tip number 1, always tell people who you are and always tell people what you want to do. Remember those job interviews? Ooh, we tidy up that resume so it matches that job description as closely as we possibly can. We get into that interview and we try to answer the questions as eloquently as we can so that we feel we did a good job and they'll like us. We're fitting in. Matter of fact, isn't that how we judge how well we did in an interview? Is to go, yeah, every question they had, bang, I smacked right back at them. But what we don't do, what we fail to do sometimes, is tell them who we are. Think about it. Are you the methodical type of person who likes to do A, then B, then C, and don't you dare mess up that order? One has to come before the other. Or are you a cowboy like me I don't care what order you do it in, as long as we get results. We can do it different every time. We get those results, I'm good. Who are you? What do you bring to the table? What personality type do you bring to the table? And tell them what you want to do. Do you want to make sure that group's process stays strong and when that quality is there? And forget innovation, just need to make sure everything adds up and the quality is there? Or do you want to rip that thing apart? Maybe that's a bad thing to say in an interview, but do you want to take that process, shake it up so the good stuff stays and the unnecessary stuff goes away? Forget what they're looking for. What do you want to do? Because if I can let you in on a little secret, job interview questions aren't perfect. As a man who's had to write them, it's very hard to write job interview questions that really tells you what you need to know about the person coming in the door. So don't treat them like the gold standard. Rather than trying to answer every question as perfect as you possibly can, get in there and tell them who you are and what you want to do. And that's not just job interviews, new friends, new groups, your Toastmasters club. Yes, Toastmasters has a curriculum, but what do you want to get out of that curriculum? Tell people. Why does that work for other people? How does this connect with helping other people? I will tell you why. It's because the one thing we can almost always count on people to do is reciprocate. Kathy, if I do something bad to you, you're going to want to do something bad to me. Ravi, if I do something good for you, oh, I know you're going to do something good for me. Reciprocating back and forth is what we do. So the more of yourself you inject into a situation, the more other people are going to hand right back to you. And that's exactly what you're looking for. You're already influencing people, whether you realize it or whether you're not. When it comes to helping people, tip number 2, it's not your job, your responsibility to be people's savior. Think about it. Have you ever walked into a situation where I'm going to help this person and this person's going to achieve their dreams and they're going to meet their goals and this group's going to be awesome and raw, angels are going to be singing and it's going to be a party. And then it doesn't happen. And why doesn't it happen? Because that is an incredible weight to be on your shoulders. It's not your responsibility to be someone's savior or to make sure they reach their ultimate goals. It is only your responsibility to help coach and nudge them in that direction. Tip number 3, it's not your job to decide whether something is good or bad. Remember how when I got laid off and everybody was looking at me like I had just died or I had a disease? Again, I was one of the happiest people in the building. You ever met someone who was laid off from a company a couple years later? Don't they just have a glow about them? This was the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. And part of me knew it. 50 weeks of full severance pay doesn't hurt either. It's not your job to decide whether information is good or bad from someone. It's their job. It's your job to tell them the truth. Here's what I see. Here's what's going on. Here's my idea. And then it's their idea to decide if that's the right idea for them. It's their responsibility to decide if that advice you're giving or whatever help you're providing is right for them. Don't get hung up on that. Which is great segue into tip number 4, which is it's not your responsibility to have the right answers. It is just to contribute. Remember, every conversation that has ever had, every situation that has ever been had, has never had one big glowing correct answer and one big dark and stormy wrong answer. It's always a collection of pros and cons, and it must be discussed, sometimes at length, to decide what pros suit your team and people the best and what cons we're willing to live with. So it is not your responsibility to walk in there and have that big glowing idea. I wish I could make my jacket float like a cape. That, and tell them exactly what the right answer is. It's just your job to contribute and make sure they have that conversation. Because friends, isn't that what holds us back from trying to help people? We don't just want to give good advice. We want to give good advice. We don't want to just give an answer. We want to give the right answer. And that is what holds us back. Because when we stop trying to over polish everything that we bring to the table, and we realize it's not even our decision to decide what the right idea or answer is, then we start contributing. Boom, 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 boom. We don't provide answers. We provide options and ideas. Try this, try this, try this, try this. Boom, 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 boom. You are contributing like a machine. Think of yourself as a GPS. All right, to get to this place, this is the quickest way. Okay, they didn't take that way. Recalculate, try this way. Okay, try this one, try this one. It's not your job to be right. It's just your job to stick with them, stand by them, and keep offering suggestions until they get where they're going. My friends, helping people to 100% of your ability is what is going to help you be authentic. Is what's going to take all those great ideas that are stuck in your brain, and it's what's going to float them all into the world, regardless if someone likes it or they don't. That is what's going to help bring those two together, to make sure you are bringing 100% of yourself and you are using that to help other people. In conclusion, let me just give the advice. If you find yourself still following the crowd, if you find yourself still trying to fit in, to blend in, I'm begging of you, learn to be your authentic self, to be that part of the team, not just say what the entire team is saying, so that they can have thorough conversations, so that they can know what's going on in your head. You don't know anybody, anything but that. Bring 100% of yourself to every situation and help people as much as you can. But if you don't listen to any of that, just do me one favor. When you wake up tomorrow morning, rather than trying to figure out what type of world you live in and then react to that, think about the kind of person you want to be and be that so that the world can react to you. My friends, be authentic.